Okay, welcome to part 4 of our series on how to reformat and restructure badly structured data in Excel. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to, we've already saved these as values, and now we're just going to check our work and then finish cleaning up the spreadsheet. So one way we can check our work is to sum, or in other words, SUM, add up all the values. If I look at this one right here and just mouse over, let's go down and make sure we don't have any unnecessary totals. We do have totals at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these grand totals down here that we created or that were there. We can always add them back in later if we want to. But let's just, if we highlight this entire column and look down at the bottom right of the screen, it'll actually automatically sum them for you. That will sum them up. Whatever is within the highlighted area of the range, it will get summed up. So I'm just looking at the numbers here, 391, 721, okay? So now if I do the same thing for these, remember we got to divide by 2 here. If we sum up, what we could do is just sum, since these are redundant, these are all going to have two values, why don't we just sum up the totals rows? And that way we're not going to get the redundant data, okay? And look, same thing at the bottom right, 391, 721, and some change. So that tells us that we did it correctly. We do have the correct data. So that's good. We checked our work. Last thing we're going to do is delete these unneeded columns here. Again, I recommend every time you delete something, it's always good to save your work as a new version just so you can revert to it later. So highlighted these columns, and we are going to delete them. And then we're going to also get rid of this pesky additional row or header rows up here. So now let's kind of double check to go back to what we were going for at the beginning and see if we accomplished our goal. We wanted one single header row, which we have now. We don't have redundancy in terms of multiple totals columns or multiple columns with the same name like we had before with all those ship mode columns. We don't have any blank cells, shouldn't have any blank cells at least, unless there was a blank one in terms of the revenue amount, but it would still show as something like a 0. So no blank cells. And we've reduced the number of columns from 16 columns down to very much tidier 4 columns. And it's much more human readable, much easier for me to go through and see what each of these order IDs actually ended up meaning. You may want to play with some of the formatting. You might want to change it to a dollar value, make it look a little nicer. But now you are completely set up and ready to run a pivot table. So if you want to run a pivot table, you would insert a pivot table. I'm not going to go through that here because that's a different lesson, but easily run a pivot table right there and play with the data. In the format we had at the beginning of this 4-part video series, there's no way you could have run a pivot table that would have made any sense. So you are now set to slice and dice this data however you want, and hopefully this gave you a good idea. Remember, your spreadsheet will look different, so you'll have to strategize with your spreadsheet, but watch this series a couple of times to make sure you get all the major steps and then apply that knowledge to your own spreadsheet. Good luck.